Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. We'll be starting in a few minutes. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. We have, it's 10 a.m. and we have a lot to cover. So we're gonna go ahead and start as people are joining in. My name is Patricia Lozano, and I am the Executive Director of Early Edge California. As many of you know, Governor Newsom recently signed the 21-22 state budget, which includes plans to expand transitional kindergarten to all 4-year-olds by the 2025-26 school year. Including in this plan is to have 2 adults in TK classrooms, and that is why we wanted to share today this amazing and super creative model that San Diego Unified School District has been implementing for the last few years. And it is basically thinking about a co-teaching model to support UTK. So with that goal in mind, I want to go over the agenda so you know what we're covering. So first, we're going to have an overview of the co-teaching model, and you'll have teachers, the creators, the leaders sharing about this. We will also have a short video presentation that will introduce you to this model, and then we will hear from teachers who are actually working in the classroom right now and listening to them about their experiences with the co-teaching model. Then we'll have a panel discussion, and we'll end with a Q&A where you will have a chance to ask questions because we don't have a lot of time. If we're not able to answer your questions, we'll do our best to follow up after the webinar. So as part of the team that is joining us today, we have San Diego Unified Representative Stephanie Siminsky. She is the Director of Early Learning. We have Lori Moore, who is the principal at Valencia Elementary School, and Stacy Hemingway and Raul Nary, who teach together in a co-teaching team. So we have an amazing team together, and we're so excited to have them, and thank them very much for taking the time today. I know they're all super busy with at school and with reopening and all the things that are happening now. So we really appreciate their time today. So now I am gonna do some quick housekeeping. There is a Q&A box located at the bottom of this Zoom screen. So please, if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to add them. We'll do our best to answer them. And in the chat box, you will see that there is an option to message just the panelist or panelists and all attendees. So please feel free to use it and say hello. Now, we're gonna, before we kick off our conversation, we'd like to show you a quick video that highlights this amazing program to get you introduced to it.
Preschool, I had full day.
Good morning, everyone. Let's get ready. Welcome to the wonderful world of TK4.
When I got to Valencia Park as the principal, I had different preschool programs. I had special ed preschool, I had full day preschool, I had AM PM. To me as a new administrator, it was super confusing. What if we took the 4-year-olds and put them with the transitional kindergartners and made that its own program?
What this is a single, coherent, comprehensive pre-kindergarten program for all 4-year-olds in the district. It gives them access to both California preschool learning foundations, and it's in alignment with the Common Core standards.
It does take the preschool elements of the hands-on experiential learning, that fun, play-based learning, and it bridges it into the more academic foundations that TK is trying to provide kids, and it really kind of bridges that gap that existed before between preschool and kindergarten.
Twinkle, twinkle.
Twinkle, twinkle, what?
The other great strength of this program is that it takes two professionals who are experts in their field and it brings them together to strengthen one program. So you have the early childhood practitioner who has that experience with the youngest learners, and then you have the TK teacher. You bring them together and they just create this partnership that really strengthens it.
My baby, Mayavina, is in the TK program now. I just wanted to make sure that I was giving her as much opportunity and as much structure for her to be able to advance.
Brown bear, what do you see?
Courtney, can you share what makes you happy here?
I am happy when I beatbox in my neighborhood.
The kindergarten teacher will know immediately who's been to TK4 and who's been to preschool. They're usually the leaders, and they know how to be ready for the lesson. They know how to navigate the classroom. They will know how to do an online platform. It's different now. When the kids come through this program, they'll be much more better prepared for kindergarten.
So we walked down this road before COVID-19. And many would say, are you sure you want to go forward with this big, giant adaptive change? And we actually said, no, we need this now more than ever. And what we're doing and why we're doing it is supporting our earliest learners. And we just had to find a new way to deliver it during the time that we can't be physically together.
What do you learn?
I learned numbers.
Okay.
And I learned a snake.
Oh, so you learned about animals?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the snake.
Oh, yeah, and the snake.
All right. I hope you enjoy that video. It can give you a little bit of an idea of where we're going to be talking today. Now I'd like to introduce Stephanie Siminsky, the Early Learning Director at San Diego Unified, and the driving force behind this innovative TK program, a truly amazing ACE leader. I really am very grateful for all the things she does for our families and kids in California. Stephanie has worked tirelessly to develop and successfully implement the co-teaching model across the school district, and today she will provide us with background and a thorough overview of the key elements of this model. We're so grateful to have you here, and now I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you, Early Edge California, for including San Diego Unified and sharing our experience and our story. And every time I see that video, or I get to be part of watching kids and the joy that they experience in our classroom, it makes me so happy. It just makes your day. So I could watch that video 100 times just because it's so wonderful. So thank you for having us. Originally, TK4 was designed as a long-term investment in the educational system by building equitable schools that ultimately support closing the gap. And also the vision of helping students transition to kindergarten, the kindergarten learning context, was so important to us that they were prepared and ready to start school. As you saw one of our teachers talking, the kindergarten teachers know who's been through our program, and they can see the skills and foundation that has helped them be ready. Some of the conditions that we built TK4 on are with intentional integration of activities such as movement, play, visual and auditory activities that accommodate diverse learning styles. Just because it's a UTK environment, that foundational piece of the movement and play and purposeful, creative skill set is very important to our learning. We've also built and developed developmentally appropriate practices that consider the whole landscape of learning, motivational, cultural, social, emotional, as well as cognitive. And we've increased access and opportunity for all 4-year-olds to participate in an early learning experience, which is something we're very, very proud of. TK4 put our 4-year-olds on a developmental trajectory to attain and demonstrate on a regular basis the knowledge and skills needed for kindergarten success. And with the passing of universal transitional kindergarten, even more of our students and families across the state have an opportunity to achieve. So San Diego Unified's TK4 program was originally designed and implemented by commingling 4-year-old children with age-eligible TK students within a co-teaching classroom. And the co-teaching model is a collaborative partnership between an ECE teacher and a TK multiple subject teacher. And co-teaching, what we believe and what we value behind our co-teaching model is it's a place where educators peacefully exist in the same place and share in best practice that serves the needs and interests of our students. Also, where the skills and strengths are leveraged between the team and maximized for positive student outcomes. And it creates the place for robust data sharing, vertical articulation, and the sharing of best practice. Our commingled classrooms and our co-teaching teachers talk to, plan with the other teams on their campus, with the kindergarten teachers, with the first grade teachers, where we take a closer look at that developmental continuum. On this slide, I highlighted 6 areas that support or give us the foundation to a successful program. And one of the first areas that we highlight as a district is to ensure equity and access for all 4-year-olds. This alone is one of the most rewarding components of the Universal Transitional Kindergarten rollout. To have this amazing opportunity for our children and their future is something that's really exciting. Also, San Diego Unified School District has a focus on early literacy and the foundations and skills needed. And so with State Superintendent Tony Thurman's launch for early literacy, we too want to prepare early learners to be reading by 3rd grade. Number 3, we built the foundation of providing opportunities for families to explore learning through interactive events. And this actually started in our distance learning COVID world, where we knew that our early learners weren't getting that peer interaction or adult to peer interaction on other than through the computer. And so we designed interactive parent and family engagement events where we'd have a pickup location, and we focused on VAPA and STEAM activities. And the students would come get a bag of supplies, and where we had an art teacher lead a lesson that was aligned with early literacy skills and strategies. And there was a little sticker on the bag, and it'd say countdown in 1 day. And on the event, they would rip open their bags like it was their birthday, and the parents and student would work together, and they created self-portraits. We read books together to have that interactive skill set, even through an online environment. We also provide professional development opportunities for leadership and educators within the framework of principals, administrators, co-teaching professional development, students in inclusive settings, early literacy, and dual language learners. The alignment relates to the professional development of the TK standards and the preschool learning foundations to have that vertical alignment like we spoke about, the PLC collaboration in addition to peer models and demonstration classrooms, where if someone wants to know how have you maximized and leveraged that expertise in that classroom, they can lean on another UTK, TK4 teacher, co-teachers to help and demonstrate or share in best practice in that environment. And most importantly, co-teaching allows the environment to have rich expertise and knowledge where the teachers plan, facilitate, and monitor student progress together. So in addition to these foundational elements of our program, some ways that have supported this model within our district is the most important is that we view early learning as a priority and making that investment for the long-term and future for our students. We also use the title resources, CSPP, planning funds, grants, and the general fund to help support our program. I do want to point out that this is just one example of how an LEA can build the system and structures for program implementation. The how is up to all the experts in the field across the state. For us, we would love to share our specific examples of best practices and strategies that have led to this exemplary model of success for our district. And through the perspective of our co-teachers, Stacy Hemingway and Raul Nary, as well as through the lens of our district leadership, Lori Moore, principal of Valencia Park Elementary. So we want to thank you for joining our district and sharing our story.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. This was a great overview, and I'm so excited to have Stacy and Raul today with us. I really always appreciate when we can hear the voices of those who are with our kids and who are doing the work every day, and we appreciate you a lot. So thank you for joining us today. So, I wanted to start by hearing from you. I get a lot of questions around how does this model work in terms of co-teaching? How do you are truly a team? So, if you can describe what happens in your day-to-day to make that work as a team, that would be great to hear from you.
Good. Stacey, you want to start it?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. Raul and I, in the beginning, Dr. Siminsky shared her vision about the TK program. So we had a framework of what we wanted to do. And then when we realized we were working together, we just sat down and we talked and got to know one another. And we explained what was important to us, what we felt was developmentally appropriate, or what they needed to do to get ready for kindergarten. So our communication, before we even started, we knew we were a team, and we discussed some norms. And we also, when we communicate with parents, everything is from both of us. It's never just Mr. Nary or Mrs. Hemingway. It's all of us, the team in the classroom. So I think that helps set the tone.
Yeah, so we use different platforms to communicate with our parents. That's one of the most important things. That's how our day starts, with early meet and greet with our parents, and just kind of discuss how we're going to roll out our days. And so then from there, we bring them into our classroom, and then we start the day with the free choice center. So that the whole time, Ms. Hemingway and I are doing assessments, informal assessments, and during that time, and then we transition into a literacy block where, depending on what the lesson is, we have different co-teaching programs that Ms. Hemingway and I use. We use one of the four, maybe just depending on what the lesson requires. And then also one of us will lead the word study lesson as well. During that literacy block, we also incorporate the use of the fine motor skills work throughout the day. We keep it fun, Miss Hemingway is such a great dancer, so.
Love that.
Yeah. So yeah, and then the day consists of a wellness break, and then we break into a math group, depending also what the lesson requires, and then after lunch we come back to a STEAM block, and then we have at the end of our days we have a directive center time, where we that's where we do a lot of a majority of our work, and we hit our target students, and so we have fun.
We do have a lot of fun, and I think the children, you're a team when I get called Mr. Nary and Miss Nary, so you're a true team when that happens. The parents, depending on who they see, we share all the information, any news we get, we text back and forth. Did you hear from Julie's mom? So we're always really up to date with what information is coming in, and we make sure both of us have that.
That's great. So, many other school districts may consider this model as they are planning to implement and expand TK. Can you provide some examples of, going back when you started working together, what were key things that you worked on? And I think you mentioned a few to create that strong partnership. So if you can think about when you started, what are the key things that, if someone is new and are trying to build a co-teaching model, what are the key things that you need to put in place for a team to work together?
Yes, I'll start this one, Stacey. So both of us, we bring a set of skills. I come from, like I said, I come from the TK. I was a kinder teacher, and one of the things was just blending both of our set of skills. And what happened was we both had so much wealth of curriculum, and I think that was a tricky part. Just trying to get it. And so, like I said, so it was a long-term planning, and what we did was we just had to scale it back, and we consistent assessments and just based on the needs of students. Ms. Hemingway, want to jump in there and go ahead and add to it?
Also, in the beginning, we talked about our goal is to get them ready for kindergarten, in addition, build that social emotional development. We both had a little bit of different approach. So what we did is we would say, this is how I do it. This is how I do it. Now, how do we do it this way? And we tried new things all the time. We weren't afraid to make mistakes. We would look at each other and said, oh, that did not go well. Sometimes we were like, oh yeah, that's perfect, let's do that again. So as we were moving along, we found our niche. And like he said, we used a couple different co-teaching models. We do a lot of modeling for the students. We will make sure that everybody's engaged. We have eye contact. So if someone pick her, get her involved. We do a lot of back and forth so they see how to have a conversation.
Great. And I think you kind of talked a little bit about it, how, you work as a team, but can you share something that you have learned from each other, given that you have very different backgrounds, but also very similar, you're working with the same age of kids. So can you share something that you have learned from each other during this time?
Sure. I learned, even though our literacy skills in preschool are really strong, I learned through the training that the district provided, and mostly from Raul, is the high impact reading strategies and math strategies. Because usually we go to this area and we push and we try to give as much as we can so they go into kindergarten with this wealth of experience. But there was a few pieces that I was missing. And now that I've learned how to incorporate that in my teaching, I've learned how to even create stronger readers. And one other point that I want to make is we were doing an activity at the end of last year. We were only in school for about 6 weeks. And I looked and everybody was working and they were so involved. And, for me, I always had support in the staff in the early childhood classroom, and he was by himself. So that release of responsibility looked different to me. And now I look back and I was so proud that we established this this work ethic and this love for learning, and we stood back and they were doing the work, and I think I really learned a lot of that from Raul.
Yeah, for me, what I thought, differentiated, lessons that I was doing, and then once I really understood the preschool learning foundations, talking to Stacy, maybe I wasn't differentiating, as I thought I was. And so that's one of the things that, working with Stacy, it's really helped me out quite a bit because, I can see the progression of what it really means to differentiate. And so I thought I was doing that, but I think I was just scaling back the work where it's not the same. And so, and that's one of the things that, I've, continue working on, and Stacy keeps reminding me of, of age appropriate, development. So that's one of the areas that I'm really working on. So right now.
That's great. So I think you mentioned a little bit about communicating with families. Can you share how you leverage your expertise and how you work as a team? Because we know how important it is, and I know we've been through a lot, with Zoom and now going back in person. But can you share how you really work together on communicating with families?
We start our day, like I said, with the meet and greet. We end our day with the meet and greet. It's very important that we have different options, different platforms for parents to communicate with us. I think that's one of the when discussion when Stacy and I were first started co-teaching, we learned that right away how important it is to get parent involvement, and so that's kind of part of our philosophy. And so we just continue, but continuous dialogue, depending on the parent, some parents, life happens. And so their communication with us is whether it's through a FaceTime, whether it's through a text message. We use Class Dojo as, messenger. We have our Google Classroom, so it is continuous, every day, and Stacy does such a good job. I love my parents too, but, I know Stacy, that's one of her expertise. It's just parent involvement. So
that's great.
When you teach preschool for a while, they come in and they're such little kids and parents just want to be involved. So we try to incorporate that here, but also transition the parents that, into the kindergarten life. So like he said, whatever's easy for them, we give them a lot of options to communicate. We're both pretty much an open book. And we always finish with, I'll share with Mr. Nary. I'll tell Miss Hemingway. So they know that whatever information they're giving us, the whole team in the classroom's going to get it. And I think that's been really important. And when we did back to school night, it was about the team. It was about us. And sometimes someone might feel more comfortable speaking to Mr. Nary, and another parent might feel more comfortable speaking to me. And we're good with that. Whatever makes them get involved and feel comfortable, and because it's about the parent as well.
And that's one of the things with this pandemic is also, we're, like I said, we're very transparent. We love parent involvement in the classroom, but unfortunately at this time, it can't happen. But hopefully, when things change, we hope we get parent involvement, get them in the classroom with us.
Right.
We try to, it's not like before where they can come into our room and finish their day and see the environment. So Mr. Nary's really techie. So he shows them around the room with the camera.
That's awesome.
Those kind of things. And parents have said, thank you. Now, it's so great to see them at work and see the classroom. So when they talk about it, they have a frame of reference. I saw your library area is beautiful. What did you do there today? So, we try to get them as involved as we can with, the protocols that are in place right now.
Great. Yeah, we all hope that slowly, we can bring them back in the classroom, but that was super helpful. Thank you so much. So my last question before, and I know a lot of participants are adding questions that we'll try to respond during the Q&A or after the webinar. So thank you. Keep adding those, and we'll do our best to answer those at the end. So my last question is, if you have one tip or piece of advice that you would share with other co-teaching educators? Do you have something that you want to share with us today?
Sure. You know, one thing, we're very lucky because we both have the same vision, and we, you know, our co-teaching is, we're excited to be in this program. We're happy, we love it. But I think it's really important for both of us. We told them what was important, each other, what was important to one another. In my, I believe in development, this is important, and you know, academics, this is important. So we shared that, and then I think if someone needs, for example, to speak to the principal, you know, say, how can you help us be more on the same page? It's mutual respect, and no one is the main leader. We look at, we're a team, and that's what we want them to be, a team, as they collaborate and work together.
Yeah, it's we have no lead teachers here. You know, we're both the same. We you know, and it's okay. Like I said earlier, it's okay to take risks. You know, it's okay to feel vulnerable. You know, it's like, yeah, we've been doing it. You know, and so, but you know, I've learned quite a bit from Stacy, and you know, and so just, you know, to be open-minded. You know, we get some, unfortunately, you know, some of us teachers get set in our own ways that, you know what, we think we're, you know, but when you hear from a different lens, you're like, oh, you know what, that makes sense. And so that's one of the things, having that second pair of eyes inside the classroom, you know, and just bouncing ideas and a lot of reflection. You know, we do a lot of reflection after lessons. Yeah. And that helps us out quite a bit. Like, you know, that didn't work. So, or, you know what, maybe let's pull this group, you know, I'll work with this group, Stacey, and, you know, because, you know, maybe they didn't get it. We got to go back and rehearse or, you know, revisit a lesson. And so, you know, just having that extra set of eyes, because, you know, teaching is lonely. I mean, you're in your classroom yourself, but now that you have, you know, we're always chortling, we're always having fun. We leave, you know, we always have a laugh in the day, and, you know, we just a lot of reflection on our day. And so it just works out for us. Works out quite well.
Great, thank you so much. And I think there was one of the questions about how much time do you have to plan together. So it seems like you do that quite a bit, which is
quite a bit on a daily. Yeah, it is, because like I said, as Stacy has a wealth of materials and I have a wealth of materials, and we just kind of blend it. Okay, what's going to work? We start thinking about certain students that it's going to be, you know, impactful for, and so, you know, so just always constantly bounce. You've got to be dynamic. You got to be dynamic, and so be ready to change. And so
our goal is, at the end of the day, we want them to come back. We want them to be excited. Raul always talks about the buy-in. We want the buy-in in our classroom. We want them to be so excited that they can't wait to come to school. So that's our goal.
Thank you. And I wish we had more time to answer all the questions and keep learning from you too. But thank you for sharing today. And I'm now going to invite the rest of our panel to join us. So Stephanie Siminsky, which you heard from her, and Lori Morrow, who is the principal at Valencia Park Elementary. This panel will be moderated by Kelly Reynolds, who is our senior policy analyst at Early Edge California. And now, Kelly, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much again to all of our panelists for joining us today. We're so excited to learn more about your experience with co-teaching and also learn from your expertise. To keep the format smooth over Zoom, I'll ask each panelist a few questions at a time before transitioning to the next panelist. So Stephanie, I'll start with you. Starting with a little bit more of the macro before we go into the micro. How did you build a shared vision around implementation of Universal Transitional Kindergarten in San Diego Unified?
So in talking about the big picture, one of the first things San Diego Unified firmly believes in is the integration of all district departments. Nobody in early learning is working by themselves. We're all in it together, and that's really important. So through this integration, what I specifically mean is I'm integrated in with the school sites and the principals. The principals integrate with the teachers. We have human resources that I partner with facilities design, in neighborhood enrollment and options. We have labor relations, we have finance, we have food services. All of us meet and talk and collaborate on a regular basis. And that is a key to the implementation of TK4 and Universal Transitional Kindergarten. The second layer that goes along with that is together you're developing a common vocabulary. If anyone knows education, there's about 20,000 acronyms that only educators know. And so this common vocabulary or these acronyms that you use have to be used across the board. So when you talk about TK4, our families know what TK4 means, and our families know what UTK means, our food services, our prime time. Everybody knows the same common language of what is embodied by early learning programs and how that supports positive student outcomes for our students. And the last most important critical piece in building a shared vision, and our two teachers spoke about this, is we all share excitement together. When this went live and this was approved, we called each other and we're like, did you see it? Did you see it? It happened. Me and Lori, did it happen yet? Did it happen? What, we talk about what's happening in legislation, what's happening for our students, and what's happening with our families. And we have excitement for it. So when we talk to other people in the district, we're so excited that we feel that it's contagious. And one of the things that actually Lori and I did last year that kind of created an aha moment for the shared vision was so many oftentimes people want to separate students by age. And as we all know, age does not define a student's progress. And so there's no reason that you would call your classroom a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, or a preschool and a TK. You would never refer or label a student such as that. We build our instruction and we build our progress monitoring on the skills and interests of our students. And so one thing that we did that kind of created this aha moment, that actually, as Lori and I were collaborating, where we even had an aha moment, is we pulled student rosters and we pulled their birth date. And when you look at their birth date and these students are in the classroom together, and you say to yourself, okay, their birth date, they were born in November. Next year, are they going to TK or are they going to kindergarten? Oh, kindergarten. Okay, this student was born, in February. Are they going to TK or kindergarten next year? Oh, kindergarten? And you'll see that about 98% of those students are all going to kindergarten, all destination kindergarten. And why on earth would we separate our students' learning experience based on age and not have students participate in different experiences because of their labeled age? So that's something that, to build that shared vision and that excitement for those outcomes, that's part of how we did it. And now we all know that this investment is wonderful and for our students, and we really believe in it. And so it helped us move along its way.
That's so awesome to hear. You've talked a little bit about this as you were explaining your vision, but in what ways does an integrated department support the program?
Thank you. So we get, I get a lot of questions of how we fund it, how we staff it, how do you have enough teachers? How do you do all these operational pieces? And my honest answer, and this is really key, is it's about the collaboration and integration of early learning programs. So early learning with finance, I bring to the table my knowledge and skill set on California State preschool program funding, on different planning grant funds, on professional development grants. HR brings in pieces of how much staff do we have? Where could we be absorbed? Neighborhood enrollment options brings in our projections. So every school district makes projections with the demographers and facility space. And so by partnering and collaborating with neighborhood schools and enrollment options, I know where possibly an ECE TK co-teaching model or UTK classroom could open up, because I'm part of those conversations. And you'll soon recognize, by partnering with facilities, finance, NSEO, you will know where you can absorb certain programs, where you're actually not spending money, you're actually saving money, because some of these aspects of the program are already built into your budget. So it's really about maximizing your resources, eliminating duplication of services, and partnering with the different departments across the district, because that's where you're going to find how you're able to fund this model, how you're going to able to find space for this model. And of course, nothing's cost neutral. And of course, you know, talking with executive leadership and your superintendent, and the priority and the district investment that it makes in its students helps fund this program.
Thank you for touching on that. That's probably one of the questions we hear the most is how is this financially possible? So thank you for touching on that. You touched on this a little bit, but how do you support your workforce in personal and professional growth, including both certificated and classified staff?
So we're really fortunate. Our Board of Education, our superintendent, our chief of staff, our chief of HR are very dedicated to creating that pipeline and pathway for our educators. And some of the components in the broad, you know, for our entire district, we have a pipeline pathway where educators earn reimbursement, where there's grants they can apply to through San Diego Cares. They had a program where you can earn some reimbursement of units, where we develop in-house support, where we have cohorts that help with homework assignments, best practices, organization, PLC time that we can collaborate together on how we want to structure that learning pathway, just helping each other build that success through that pipeline. Also, you know, the continuous pipeline where we help the classified staff members earn ECE units, where TK teachers are earning the ECE 24 ECE units. It's all built into that pipeline and pathway of opportunity. As the governor laid out in his state budget for UTK, there is professional development grant funds that we're in development with universities on creating another robust pathway specifically for our early learning educators. That's still in the development stages, but it's something that we will definitely be proud of when finished.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing it. I mean, the workforce pipeline is critical, especially as we're expanding to serve all 4-year-olds. So Lori, now I'm going to turn it over to you. From a principal perspective, what prepared you as a principal for the TK4 co-teaching early learning program?
So first of all, I just have to go back to the video at the beginning. Those are my kids and my teachers. It's so cute. So this is going on my 11th year at Valencia Park. And when I got here, we did have preschool. We had a full day. We had AM, PM sessions. I also had TK, but our TK was never full. So it was always a TKK combo, which was always kind of tough for me. And so when this came up, and like Stephanie said, we were just kind of talking about like, wow, what if we took 4-year-olds from the preschool and we put them with the TK that's currently TK age, and then we made that as a class. It just made so much more sense because you already had preschool and you already have TK. So what I have now is I have 2 full classes. It's 24 to 1. It's 24 kids, 12 to 1, 12 children to 1 adult. They're both full and they're loving it. So I had a TK teacher and I had a preschool teacher, and they are a match made in heaven, kind of like Raul and Stacy. The first group I had was just a natural because they were already doing it, and they did maximize their expertise when they came together. And then I have another class, and it's beautiful. It's just it's the way that the teachers are working together is fabulous. But we did have to prepare, and I was on top of it because I've been doing this, and I was paying attention to Stephanie as we were kind of figuring out what this might look like. But for a lot of other principals too, Stephanie as the director was there having meetings all the time, trying to explain, okay, this is the shift, this is the change. We did walkthroughs, we had PD. Stephanie would go to different principal schools. So we were really trying to figure out how this was going to work, and what we did not want. We did not want it to be, well, you teach these kids and you're teaching these kids. Never once was that ever a thing. It was you two are bringing your expertise together and you're teaching the class. So that was really, really important from the get-go, to get this up and running, to make sure that there was no distinction.
That's great. Thank you for sharing a bit about that. And what should a principal do to cultivate leadership within the classroom?
I think kind of, again, like Stacy and Roll said at the very beginning, the teachers first have to listen to each other. So they each bring something to the table. So it's a matter of, okay, this is what I bring. This is something that, you know, I can't let go of because this is so important and critical. And then this is something that I bring. And so them coming together and both seeing each other as equals. As a matter of fact, at our school, the TK, the multiple subject teacher, had been teaching here, I think, over 20 years. Just last year, her first year doing 4 TK, the staff nominated her as Teacher of the Year. Like it, and she'd been here over 20 years, and it was just so thrilling. And then the ECE teacher, she had been here for quite a few years, but now in staff meetings, she's speaking up. Her voice is being heard. So they both are taking on roles of leadership that they really never had. And so I think it's the confidence of having a partner and feeling like we got this, that the two of them are they're just shining. So it's been really fantastic.
That's awesome to hear how this model is empowering veteran teachers. It's exciting. And lastly, how did you create a non-hierarchical environment for the co-teaching teams at your school?
Yeah, for anyone getting ready to do this, I would say that that's one of the most important things, is you have to look, each teacher is an expert in their area. And if they're not, because I saw a question, you want to make sure that you're really mindful of who you're bringing together, because we have to be open and have a positive attitude. And you would look at, okay, I'm bringing the lens of the early learner. I'm bringing the lens of the TK with the standards, and I'm looking at the academics. So you bring those two together. And then the part that is so awesome is the way that the teachers every day, they kind of quickly meet, like y'all were talking about that too. And it's like, they quickly meet and they are like, oh, did you see this? And let's do this. And it's blended very nicely, because my role as the principal is to make sure that I'm in there for those planning meetings and to say, that is so amazing, you know, you bringing that part and how you bring this part, because you really have to make sure that each person sees themselves as bringing something to the table and as an equal, and that they're hearing and listening to each other. And you can't tell which teacher's which. When you walk into the classrooms at my school, you'll see them both up front, singing and dancing, or one of them will be leading a story, then one will be leading math. It's interchangeable. But just kind of like when you have an expert for English learners, they're in the class and they can pay attention a little more to the English learner students and what they might need. I think it's kind of like that. So you're in there and you're the teacher, but your lens is just a little bit different, because you're looking at something, but it's not really that noticeable. The other thing I wanted to mention is what Stephanie said, is when we first put the kids came together, it was like, well, you've got 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. But when we started looking at the birthdays, literally I had 2 kids from my class last year that are still in the program. They all went to kindergarten. So the birthdays, a lot of them are going to kindergarten, even if they're 4-year-olds. So when you started to really look at that, it wasn't all hot for us. It was like, oh, wow, these kids are not getting ready for another year of UTK. They're getting ready for kindergarten. And if they are getting ready for another year of UTK, it's awesome. Great. 2 years of that, then you send them on to kindergarten. Couldn't ask for more.
Thank you so much for sharing. So now, Raul and Stacy, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to try and integrate some of the questions we've gotten in the chat, because there's a lot that I think are relevant to the teaching experience. So I'm going to try and throw those into some of the questions here. So first one is, what professional development was productive in helping you develop a blended and developmentally appropriate learning environment? And then I'm going to add on to that because I've seen it in the chat. What are the sorts of PD opportunities that are available for current teachers, not necessarily people that are trying to become TK teachers?
You know, Dr. Siminsky always makes sure that we have robust training. And I think that's really important. When the program rolled out, we were able to go together to trainings that were just for TK4 literacy, you know, different parts of literacy, math. She made sure we had everything at our fingertips, and it was good for us to go together because we talked about it. And sometimes we said, yeah, we do that. But other times, oh, we should try that. And we also have a micro credential within our district. And Dr. Siminsky makes sure that we make, there's a TK option for us who want to continue our education in that way.
And we also do like a lot of the reading, like co-teaching programs available to us. And that's one of the things that we do is we kind of, you know, the different programs. And so we do read a lot of professional, you know, development as well. So we talk about it quite a bit, quite a lot of dialogue between Stacy and I.
How did you go about designing the physical conditions of the classroom to meet developmental and instructional needs?
I think that was the tricky part. We both had full classrooms full of furniture, but you know, one of the things is when we establish our norms, you know, Stacy and I talked, okay, Stacy, you know, what's, you know, what do you need to see, you know, what's age appropriate? And I would bring the TK side. So we started with our library. We knew the importance of our library, you know, and like, we want that to be like the focal point, you know, where our students want to be, you know, in. And so as you walk into our classroom, you're going to see this beautiful library we have. And but you know, Stacy also said, okay, we need this, you know, during you know, our center, you know, center time, we need this. And so it was that was a tricky part, but you know what, we got it done. And I think we're both, you know, quite happy with our room environment. You know, Stacy, you want to add a little more to that?
Yeah, it was interesting because we had, like Principal Moore says, we have a different lens. So I would make sure that some of the centers, the intentional play-based centers were there. And he had his idea of what we needed. And it just came together. And for a couple of weeks, we moved things out, moved things in. As an early child educator, we were trained in the what we call ECHRS. It's a rating scale, early child rating scale. So we used that as a base and what Raul brought to the table. And I have this thing about a calming environment. So he let me do that. And we, together, people come in our room and they say it's beautiful. And I have to agree, it's really student centered, you know, it's for them. We don't even have a desk. It's just all about them. And I think just have to, you know, change is okay. Just keep moving it around until it's with the kids.
Just like our classroom, it's always dynamic. It's always going to be changing.
Could I add in on this one too, because I have a funny story. So when you try to blend the two, like I taught upper grade, and so I have a vision of what the classroom would look like. So I walked in before school started this year, and I'm like, you don't have a desk for every child. Talk to me. And so the two teachers were able to talk to me and explain their thought process and how the room will start in this way, where they have the rug area and then they have center areas and they have different meeting areas, and that there is actually a desk for every child, but not the traditional way. And then they were able to tell me that we could then transition and it will grow with the child, and we can, you know, change it this way. And I was like, okay, because it took, you know, once they explained it, it made total sense. But my brain was looking at one thing, and then they were able to explain it. And the rooms are gorgeous. If y'all were ever take pictures of them, because parents can't go in, but they take pictures and they send it to the parents so they feel like they're in there. But they're gorgeous and child-centered, like y'all said.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. It's wonderful to see these classrooms develop. We've gotten a lot of questions in the chat about what types of assessments you're using to monitor if your students. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
I was trained with the DRDP, so it's ingrained in our head. Raul has learned it. So for different lessons, we use different assessments. And I think they're fluid, just like everything else, depending on our objective. Raul, do you want to share a little bit?
Yeah, like I said, it's still, I may use or the DRA, depending on the readers, depending on the level. It's just, like I said, it depending, but yeah, the DRDP, I got a chance to learn it, and I said, and also based on the Common Core standards. So we blended, the Common Core standards were the early standards, and so continuous assessments, so.
And just a follow-up question I just saw, is it the DRDP preschool or the DRDP kindergarten?
The DRD preschool, because it covers all the way through TKH. And I've learned different assessment techniques through Raul, so that's really helpful. And so it depends on the lesson and what we're doing at the time, but it's constant assessment, and that way every child can grow in their own way, and then we share our assessments, of course, and do some data collection. But it's been working out really well. I think we're always willing to try new things. I don't think it's set in stone. So that's like he said before, it's very fluid, and with assessments, that's the same practice.
I think you both have covered this a little bit, but it's come up in the chat, so I want to just ask it explicitly. Do you find that co-teachers establish particular roles or responsibilities based on their area of interest, or are you both sharing the teaching requirements equally?
I think, it's like I said, I think it's equally, we both do a lot of, dialogue between us, long-term goals. We establish the long-term plans, and what we do is, but it's an equal partnership. We're like, Stacy has her interest, like we're about to do a fall unit. We used to do a fall festival, a fall apple here. And so this is gonna be Stacy's first time around. And so, like I said, that was one of the things that, and so she had so much material. She now we're just trying to fine tune it. We have too much material.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to add on, and Lori could add on to that, is I know that, oh, sorry, Stacey.
No, go ahead, please.
That Lori had a meeting with her teachers early on in the co-teaching, and that they talked about their interests, and you can say more, Lori, but I know that was really successful in determining roles, interests, responsibilities, expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the other day I was in the class, and so Ms. Cota, who she enjoys teaching math. It's a passion of hers. And Miss Smith happens to love literacy. So they've basically said, okay, I'm going to take on the math. So when you see that, you'll see Miss Cota is using the district units, and they were doing triangles, shapes of triangles. And so she's leading the lesson, and then Miss Smith takes more of a supportive role, and she could be charting, she could be redirecting students, she could be handing things out, all of that stuff. And then when you have literacy time, Ms. Smith is using the literacy curriculum, and she's the one doing the main teaching work, while Ms. Cota is doing the supportive role. And then when they break into centers and throughout the day, it's just seamless. But another thing, as far as assessments, when they were doing the triangle, they just give them a little sheet of paper and ask kids draw a triangle. It's that, it's ongoing. They have a clipboard with all the kids' names, and then they could have what they're observing that week, what they're focusing on, and they just make little notes. So it's not, as you guys know, it's not always something formal. It's all that informal. And then when the teachers get together and say, did you notice that, he was able to explain, what a triangle is, and actually used the math language. And you just kind of, keep note of that. So we could talk about this for hours.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to try and cram in as many of these from the chat that I can. And whatever questions we aren't able to get to, we will follow up with afterwards. So apologies that we can't get to all the questions, but many people asked, what are the hours of your program, and are there wraparound services included, and are those on site, are those off site? Does anyone want to touch on that?
Just a big picture, our programs are aligned to the school day. So it's a full day, and whatever time the school starts and ends, that's the time of the TK4 UTK program. In addition to wraparound services, because of COVID last year, it looked a little different, but we partner with Head Start and Neighborhood House Association to help support our families in the community.
And I'll add on to that. It's really important that the program is part of the school, just like every other class, because when it's not, it's kind of in a silo. So they don't necessarily, teachers in preschool can't do your professional development, or if it's back to school night, sometimes it's an afterthought. So the fact that it is on a continuum of the UTK all the way up at my school to 5th grade, that makes a big difference. And I think that's essential.
Okay, last question. I know we're 1 minute left. Stephanie, what tips or advice do you have to share with other districts that are looking to implement this model?
Thanks for asking. We could go on for another hour now. No, I'll narrow it down to a couple. So there's 2 things I want to highlight. And number 1 is intentional planning for communication. Who has to know about this program, and what do they need to know and when? And I can't say it enough, but you have to plan it organizationally, to plan it structurally, and to plan it purposefully is key. There's so many stakeholders that need to know about it. And so to think about how you're going to roll it out will help with the success of your program. And also what I want to highlight is what, Stacy, Raul, and Lori, we all talked about, is that TK4 had never been done before. UTK's been never been done before. It's new. And we just had to go with it. And we had to trust ourselves and trust each other that we can do this. Just like Raul said, we can do this, and it might not go perfect the first time around, but we're gonna start the next day, and we're gonna do it better. We're gonna reflect, we're gonna meet, we're gonna collaborate, and we're gonna respond to what our students need. And so that's something that, as our early learning program, I came to early learning in 2016. The other day I reflected on the timeline, and every year it changes, but that's okay. We change for the better, and we change in response to what our students need. And that's something that if you keep that in the forefront of your brain, or you keep that in your message and your communication to your families and to your district leadership and to your teachers, your program's going to be successful too. I have no doubt.
Well, thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. I'm going to turn it back over to Patricia to close us out.
Thank you. I hope we had a lot more time to answer all your questions. And, as I mentioned, we will try to answer them and have them on our website. Please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll do our best to address all your questions and share information as much as we can. I really want to thank the San Diego Unified School District team for sharing about this co-teaching model today. You guys are doing an amazing job. So thank you. I want to thank the Kelly Reynolds and the Early Edge team for putting together this webinar. And, I hope we see you again. We are planning a few other webinars and about, just informational to help with the TK implementation, and, hope to see you again.